Danair Auto Hammer AH15 is really easy to disassemble to take a look at your internal parts. To do this, you need a 5/32 hex wrench, a 3/16 hex wrench, and a 1/4 inch hex wrench. Take the 5/32 and loosen the 4 cap screws. You'll also need a clean, dry cloth to wipe the parts down. You don't want to use any solvents or detergents to clean the internal parts. Once you've removed the 4 cap screws, you'll have 3 parts. You'll have the cap assembly, the motor assembly, and the housing to take a look at. Once you have the tool disassembled, let's take a look at the housing. Take your clean, dry cloth and wipe it down on the inside to remove any debris that may be in there, any excess oil or grease buildup. This allows you to get it clean, and it also allows you to inspect the part. So once you have it all wiped down, you're going to check for excessive wear on the chamfer where the 158 rides. Sometimes that can be damaged. Most of the time it's okay, but that is something you will need to check. The second thing you want to check is the inside diameter of the housing. You want to check for excessive wear or polishing. Sometimes it could be etched or grooved, and you want to make sure that it's in round, that it's not out of round, it hasn't been dropped and damaged. So to do this, I just take the clean, dry cloth and kind of rub your finger around there to see if it's out of round at all. If the part does have any of the issues I discussed, it will need to be replaced. If not, set it aside. Now we'll take a look at the cap assembly and those parts to see what needs to be replaced. Carefully remove the O-ring. I use a pick to remove that O-ring. You can get it out whichever way is easier for you. Just do not damage the metal around the O-ring groove. Use your 3/16 hex wrench to remove that screw. You're going to have 4 parts that come out of there. Now take your cap and same thing, wipe it off as you did the housing and inspect the metal for any cracks, excess polishing, excess wear. You want to check this inside diameter, and you also want to check around the O-ring groove. If it looks good, just set it aside to reassemble later. Let's take our 161 exhaust seat. This is a metal washer with urethane bonded to it. It has a raised seating area. Once you have all the grease and debris wiped away from there, we're going to check and make sure that that urethane isn't damaged around the seating area at all, and that it's not soft, cracked, gummy, or lifting. So I run the pick around where it is bonded to that metal to make sure it's not lifting anywhere. And then I try to insert the pick into the urethane. If it doesn't go in, that is still a good usable part. If it sinks into that urethane, your urethane has become soft and gummy and will not hold up to operation. The urethane, depending on the age of your tool, could either be this opaque blue color, it could be an opaque yellow color, could be a solid blue or a solid black. All of them are usable parts as long as they're not soft, cracked, gummy, lifting, or damaged. On the 162 plug and the screw from the cap, most of the time these are metal parts and do not need to be replaced. So I just wipe them off and set them aside. The only time I replace these are if you have a hard time getting them out or in the tool, or if your cap is stripped out in this threaded area. I would recommend replacing that screw because it could be worn and cause the new cap to be stripped out. Now we have the motor assembly to take apart and look at all of the individual parts. Carefully remove that O-ring around the outside of the tip. And at this point you need to use your 1/4 inch hex wrench to loosen all of this. To do this, you place these 2 flats that are on the side of the tip, either in a crescent wrench held by somebody or in a vise. Place your vise on the flats of the tip. Take your 1/4 inch hex, hold the valve, and loosen the tip. Okay, let's start with the 159 stem. It's an all metal part. We're going to wipe it down and we're going to check it and make sure there's no rust, corrosion, or cracks in it. And the cracks would be along here, or this could actually be cracked up here. If none of those issues are apparent, that is still a usable part and we'll set it aside. The 160 sleeve is an all metal part as well, so we're going to check it the same way. We're going to wipe it down, check it for rust, corrosion, or any cracks. The cracks tend to be in this area if they are there. The other thing to check on the 160 sleeve is for etching or grooves that are connecting these 4 holes. There should not be the etching and the grooves, and if there is, this part may need to be replaced because it may damage the chamfered area of the O-ring groove on the valve. The 163 bumper is a 100% urethane part. It is a wearable part that will need to be replaced over time. We're going to wipe this off. There are 2 grooves on the sides that are supposed to be there, but once you have it wiped off, you're going to check for pliability. You're going to check for any cracks or small chunks missing from the urethane on the inside diameter or the outside diameter of both sides. The 158 valve, let's go ahead and pick it up. It is a metal part with urethane either bonded or molded to one end depending on the age of your tool and the age of the valve. I wipe it down, then carefully remove the 4 O-rings. The 1 on the outside and the 3 on the inside. 2 are the same size on the inside, and then you have a smaller one at the end. Once you have the O-rings out, go ahead and wipe in there a little bit more to get anything out of the grooves that may be in there. To inspect this part, you want to inspect and make sure that that urethane isn't soft, cracked, gummy, lifting, or damaged. The valve could look one of 2 ways. It could be the molded valve, which is this one that has this chamfer that holds the urethane on there, and it's molded. It should not be loose. This one is a bonded valve. It's an older style. Instead of being molded, it's actually adhered to this insert. To check this one, you're going to run your pick along this area to make sure that it's not lifting at all, and you're going to run it along here. Try to lift it along the insert here. If it lifts at all, it needs to be replaced. Also, if your pick goes into the valve, then it has become soft and gummy and will need to be replaced. On the molded part, they do not tend to go soft and gummy. They may mushroom out and swell to where you want to make sure it could be a little bit raised along here, but you don't want it mushroomed out and swollen. And then also you don't want it loose, and to check for looseness, you want to see if it twists off of that insert. The other area you want to check is this 3114 O-ring groove area. If it is peened over or damaged in any way, it will jeopardize where that 3-114 O-ring goes and can cause the tool to malfunction. The last part we have to inspect is the tip of the tool. It is, in the case of the urethane tips, it is a metal insert with urethane bonded to it. We're going to wipe it down and inspect it. If it's the aluminum tip or the steel tip, just wipe those down. Most of the time those are not damaged unless it happens to be stripped out here or if the stem has broken off inside there. Once you have it wiped down, just check for cracks along here, chunks missing, anything that's wearable, but you also want to check and see if it's lifting from that insert. If it is, it will need to be replaced. If not, it's still a usable part. Once you have it all disassembled, go ahead and evaluate the parts that need to be replaced, and you have some options. You can order the parts individually, or we have a couple of kits available. We have our O-ring kit available, which has all 6 O-rings the tool requires, the 163 bumper, and a small tube of lubricant. We also have a rebuild kit available, which has all of the internal rubber and urethane parts that the tool requires. So it includes this O-ring kit, it includes a 158 valve, and a 161 exhaust seat. The only urethane part that is not in the rebuild kit would be your tip.